Hello, welcome to episode 10 of the franchise. The digits are double. And I am your host, Daniel Ehrenberg.
And I'm your host, Henry Foley. Welcome back, folks.
Yeah, and today we are continuing our coverage of the very schizophrenic Superman franchise with Superman 2, directed by Richard Lester, kind of.
Right.
And written by Mario Puzo and David and Leslie Newman. They shed that other guy this time. And,
they shed Robert Benton.
Yeah, is he somebody?
He's majorly somebody. He was a kind of a big director in the 70s. I didn't know you were going to throw that on me right away. We'll come back to him.
All right, we'll come back. All right, and we'll also be talking about Superman 3, definitely by Richard Lester. And written by the David and Leslie Newman. We shed another one, the great Mario Puzo.
Yeah, it's true.
It still blows my mind he's involved in these movies.
I know. I love it so much.
Yeah. I just picture, you think Mario Puzo is the one that came up with, like, Superman fart jokes and stuff? I don't know.
I feel like that wasn't his choice.
No? Might that have been the Newmans?
I feel like very strongly it was the Newmans,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, especially since I watched behind-the-scenes documentary of Superman 3. And
that's amazing!
Do you watch that? Or
No, but I'm excited to hear about it.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Oh, by the way, okay, sorry. Robert Benton directed Kramer versus Kramer.
Oh, you gotta give him that one, huh?
Yeah, you have to, right? Yeah.
The director of Kramer versus Kramer at some point must have gone up to one of those other writers and said, "Hello, Newman." Am I right?
Well, he did Kramer
Long way to go for that joke.
Yeah, that's good, though. Oh, yeah. Well, that's a few podcasts back, kind of.
Sure.
Remember? Yeah, Newman and Basic Instinct. All right.
I
Superman 2.
Yeah, let's do it. Superman 2. Okay, so it was released... I mean, it had a weird rollout.
Sure did.
Like, December 4th, 1980, but just in Europe and Australia.
For all intents and purposes, for us Americans, it's a 1981 movie, right? I mean,
yeah, of course, but it's just so strange that a big movie like this, a sequel to such a huge hit, would have like an independent film style rollout.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I mean, what were the Suskines running out of money? Is that what their name was? The Salkins.
The Salkins, who, from everything I've read, were assholes. So,
I
don't know.
They poured so much money into the budget that they forgot to save some for fucking distribution.
Yeah, they wanted to make Superman 2. They weren't real concerned if it was actually released.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Not a big deal.
So 25% of the footage in this movie is still leftover Richard Donner footage.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, they bring in this fellow, Richard Lester. You want to get right into Richard Lester?
Sure, go ahead. You start.
Well, I mean, he's an interesting filmmaker.
Calling him a filmmaker, okay. Yeah.
No, you're right. He's totally a for-hire guy.
Right.
But
yeah, nonetheless, interesting.
For a fan of the Beatles, not Henry,
right.
A Hard Day's Night is a pretty fun movie that has like an odd energy to it that is very specific. So I sort of, in the back of my head, want to give him that one.
Sure.
But like even as a Beatles fan, like Help isn't that good, and like he made a ton of movies in the 70s that are all pretty bad. A lot of those Three Musketeers movies.
Yeah, which, I mean, those aren't even... no one talks about those, really. I mean, does anyone? I mean,
no.
Maybe the most die-hard Musketeer fans if they're out there.
We should cover that franchise.
That would be a weird one,
would be.
because it covered a lot of
they made like 5 of them or something.
Yeah. He also directed that Sean Connery, Robin and Marion.
Yeah, I connect those in my head because I have a theory about the Three Musketeers and Robin Hood. Yeah. I have seen at least 4 or 5 iterations of both of those stories on film, and I've never liked a single one of the movies. And my theory is that the Three Musketeers and Robin Hood aren't good stories.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never cared about the Three Musketeers, but I like Robin Hood.
You don't like that Chris O'Donnell Three Musketeers?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's
or
that's
that one with Mina Suvari in a bathtub.
Which one is that?
That one's just called The Musketeer.
Oh, I thought that was American Beauty.
Well, that too. Oh, wait, maybe I'm conflating a couple of things. I think it's Mina Suvari.
If there's a bunch of petals of rose petals falling.
No, there's definitely not. That's not what I'm thinking of.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. And then Robin Hood, there's that terrible Russell Crowe, Ridley Scott movie, and that terrible Kevin Costner movie, and that terrible Mel Brooks movie, and that terrible Disney cartoon.
I'll give you... Well, I like the Disney
and that
cartoon.
terrible Errol Flynn movie. Fuck you, guys. Fuck you, old school movie buffs.
Yeah, I'm with you there, buddy. Let's just stick it to them.
Let's call a spade a spade.
Stick it to those fans that are no longer with us.
Yeah.
I think I liked the cartoon Robin Hood when I was a little kid.
I did too, but that's
right.
You know, if you watch it today, it'll be a real nostalgia buster like that first Superman was.
Yeah, and I'm with you on everything else you said. However, I did like the dour, sour Russell Crowe one.
I don't know. What are we doing? An origin story?
Yeah, it's silly. It's funny because the whole movie spends the time building up to call him Robin Hood, and then they never did a sequel, so what was the point?
Yeah. And I think they're doing another thing like that. I think some studio is going to do a Robin Hood cinematic universe.
Come on.
I think I read something like that.
Who's in the cinematic universe of Robin Hood?
I don't know. They'll do movies about all the merry men, I guess.
I've been waiting my whole life for a Friar Tuck movie.
Oh my god, right? You're going to be there day one like that Han Solo movie.
John Goodman as Friar Tuck.
I'd watch it, I guess.
Yeah, why not?
John Goodman gets me into a seat.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Superman 2 comes in at a budget of $54 million. They were like, let's spend one fewer million. That'll save us some money. Box office of 190, so it's like way not as big as the first one. Yeah,
which really surprised me on looking at that. That surprised me.
Yeah, it kind of surprised me too. But if it came out today, I would say maybe they lost money on people like torrenting it because it was released in Europe and Australia so early.
Oh.
But no, you can't really say that. It's
no, you can't.
Yeah, people just didn't go.
Yeah, nobody was walking around with like pirated VHS copies of Superman 2.
Which is a shame because I'm going to say this here right now, Henry. I wouldn't have said this to you a week ago, but my nostalgia was destroyed for Superman. Superman 2 is still pretty good.
Oh, very interesting.
I liked moments in this movie a lot. It's not great, but it is a better movie than Superman the movie.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I guess we'll just get right into it then. I didn't feel that way. I felt. I mean, we'll go back to this obviously a million times, so it's fine. I felt about the last 40 minutes of Superman 2 like I did for the first 50 minutes of Superman 1, and if you combine those two, you'd have a near perfect Christopher Reeve Superman movie.
That'd be good, and they could have done it.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about.
Like, open with all that stuff, and then put some Zod stuff in there, take away that stuff in Houston, Planet Houston, and then...
I don't mind that stuff.
Oof. I see, that's so surprising to me. I thought you were going to rip on that.
I think the comedy with Terrence Stamp in this movie works way better than the comedy with Gene Hackman in the last one.
Well, I think it works too, but I also like the most comedy in it with Terrence Stamp I like is the interaction he has with Gene Hackman. I
do like seeing Gene Hackman play Lex Luthor as more submissive.
Yeah,
that's interesting to me.
It was very funny.
And I thought the stuff with Clark and Lois in Niagara Falls was very good.
Yeah, I did too. I actually was happy that when that came up, I still liked it because I was kind of nervous.
I forgot it existed, honestly.
Oh, I always remembered that. I also realized that I've seen Superman 2 way more than I've ever seen the first Superman.
Oh, not me.
Yeah, which is weird. I knew almost every beat that was coming up. There were things in Superman 2 for sure, though, that I would have liked to have seen taken away. Actually, just in the editing room, with the sound, with the ADR, there are so many silly lines that the like crowd utters. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't like some of that.
It's really annoying. Like, if it would have been taken out, it would have been. And when we get to Superman 3, they're not uttered by the crowd; they're uttered by the main characters. But yeah.
You know what movie does that a lot, and it's annoying?
What?
That first Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a lot of bad like crowd ADR.
Oh, good. That'll be fun to revisit. I don't remember that.
Yeah,
but of course, probably by the time Spider-Man came out, the ADR itself was better.
Oh, it was competent. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like when
the lines were stupid.
When Superman saves the kid falling into Niagara Falls, you hear like some woman among the crowd go, "Of course he's Jewish."
What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I'm dead serious.
Why would you say that?
Because there's when Superman grabs the kid and he's flying back up with the kid, all that you're hearing when you'd like to just kind of focus on the rescue, you're hearing,
which is a fun little adventure sequence.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't destroy the sequence, but it's bad. There's all these like oh, where'd he come from? What? Oh, how did he get? What do you mean? Of course he's Jewish.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Superman is decidedly not Jewish.
I know he was created by Jewish men, but
of course he was.
He's decidedly
weren't
actually,
they all, Hank?
I think Bob Kane was a Catholic.
Oh, he was a God-fearing Christian?
Yeah, that's probably why I related to Batman more. Because Catholic.
No, I relate to Spider-Man. That dude is clearly a Jew.
But anyway,
his name might as well be like Peter Moskowitz.
Yeah, Peter Parkenstein. But yeah, so there's like a lot of that stuff throughout the movie that was really bad. But beside the Houston stuff, I didn't like. I did like the stuff on the moon. I thought that was kind of dark and you know what I mean? Like,
what happened on the moon? I don't remember this.
Well, when the Zod and his cronies they go to the moon first and they like kill those astronauts.
Oh yeah, right.
Like, it's really like nasty.
Yeah,
and,
that
like,
was good.
I like that. Like, there's just no. I mean, that's not like kid stuff. I even remember as a kid being kind of freaked out because it's just like it's in outer space. These guys are so helpless and like they're just merciless. And the way the one guy dies, they crush him to death in his own little spaceship. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
Yikes!
Sure.
I mean, it's brutal.
And then we cut down to Mission Control, and there's Cliff Clavin from Cheers.
Loved it.
Yeah, I know.
And I want to make a point. This is one of my stray obs.
Oh.
I thought this was hilarious and very perceptive of myself. Have you noticed that nobody in the movie is actually like doing what they're supposed to be doing? Okay, i.e., the French cops in Paris. Lois goes up to the guy. He's supposed to be guarding the Eiffel Tower during a terrorist attack.
I know.
And he gets distracted trying to translate for Lois Lane, thereby imperiling her into the situation she gets herself into. Okay?
Yeah. Coming off of Back to the Future, it's a real like, hey, look at that moment.
It's hilarious. The prison guards, when Lex Luthor escapes, are watching sports and are not paying attention to what's happening outside their tower. The NASA command are talking about like some innocuous bullshit and so therefore are not listening to what's happening to their guys being killed on the moon. And lastly, the mom in Niagara Falls is not watching her child. And so therefore he falls. Nobody does their job.
Unprepared we are for attacks.
Superman needs to be around for everything because nobody can handle any given task they are.
Hey, can I set up the plot real quick? That
Yeah.
is a good point, and you're totally right. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, everyone is kind of incompetent in this movie. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, light and a black and mild. I hear it. But that's okay.
It's going to happen a lot, people.
Sure. But okay, so in that first movie, Marlon Brando sends 3 criminals to the Phantom Zone as punishment.
Yeah.
Terrence Stamp as General Zod, Ursa, and Non, who's like a caveman, basically.
Mhm.
And, hey, Henry, in hindsight, since the planet was going to explode in like 20 minutes, maybe he just should have kept them on there.
Yeah. Well, he didn't. It wasn't his decision to send him into the Phantom Zone. Not to get all nerdy on you, but yeah, I know. Who cares, right? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they got a good deal because they got to live.
Sure, I'd rather be in the Phantom Zone than implode.
Right. Jor-El and his wife, Marlon and Susanna York, should have jumped on one of them Phantom Zone.
Sure, hop in.
Hop into the mirror.
Boom. So, yeah, that floating mirror. The comics adopted that after the...
Did they?
Yeah, after the movie. That was a
Well,
thing
it's-
for the movie, and they
It's
used
a
it.
very cool idea, and it's also a scary idea. Like
It looks stupid in the movie, but it's an interesting visual.
it's a great visual, and it's kind of terrifying. Like you don't, like they're in this tiny little prison, and it's very, you don't know what, it's cool. Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, so they're in space.
All right, so yeah, they escape the Phantom Zone. They come back to Earth, and they take over the planet. Basically, they like hold the president for ransom. There's the great kneel before Zod sequence.
Oh yeah.
Um,
By the great E.G. Marshall of 12 Angry Men.
Ooh, yeah, good catch. I didn't even
Yeah,
notice that. Yeah.
playing the president. Let's have it noted how they're freed out of the Phantom Zone.
I
They're-
also, by the way, like that he's just the president. They never call him anything. He's just, hi, I'm the president.
And it's funny that you brought that up because when I was watching it, I had to do some math here because I was didn't know there was going to be any math. Thanks, Chevy Chase reference. I was thinking, who is president? I guess all these years in my memory cloud, I had it as like a Reagan-based thing, but it's absolutely not. He wasn't even, by the time this movie was completed, it was Jimmy Carter. So it's funny because E.G. Marshall, if he resembles like anyone with like the hair and the, the stentorian kind of appearance, it would be Reagan. But it's not. It was a Carter in the White House, so it was kind of an interesting thing.
Gerald Ford would kneel before Zod just by tripping and falling. Oh,
Poor Jerry Ford.
I know.
Well, what an extra on the field of the American stage.
Sure.
Anyway, so how they get freed out of the Phantom Zone is interesting. Superman inadvertently frees them by exploding the terrorists' bomb into outer space.
Oh, yeah, and that's an interesting thing, because, okay, this movie starts with 2 sequences. First we get Previously on Superman.
Yeah, I didn't care for that.
I did like that we got another chance to see that sweet little boy's dick. Why did they include that?
Jesus Christ.
Oh,
It's so...
poor bastard.
Yeah, I know. 2 times.
I know. 2 times. Like Wyclef Jean.
Maybe
All
he
right.
got royalties.
I fucking hope so. Now his parents probably took it all.
Yeah.
But hey, but then the movie opens with a sort of like standalone action sequence,
Mm-hmm.
which yes leads to the escape of the 3 prisoners, but it's a little James Bondy, isn't it? It's like we're just gonna
Oh.
start with like a fun action sequence.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The credits already rolled though, so it's not a Bond in that way. But I
No.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
right.
not like a cold open, but
But it's
stands
unrelated.
alone.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that. You're right. That is cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And it's a fun sequence, like genuinely good sequence. I do like that Clark seems like put out at having to do it. Like he's like, oh, some shit's going down in another part of the world. People are dying. And then Perry White's like, Lois is there. And he's like, what? He's
all he
like,
cares about.
Superman is totally unwilling to save human beings unless Lois Lane is involved.
That's a phenomenal point. Yeah, I mean, his interest is piqued when he hears.
He's
but
like, huh? Lois? No!
Right. Little shift of the glasses, a little, but yeah. Then Lois, all of a sudden, he falls out the window. Kind of a cool. I like that.
Sure.
Is that the part where he falls out the window to change into or does he on the? The movies are melding a little bit with his costume changes.
Wait, are you sure Superman didn't ski off a rooftop by accident?
That's in Superman Returns. Anyway.
No, it's in 3.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to remember because he bows out of a window. No, that's in the first one when Lex is calling him on the dog whistle type thing. In this one, we got a great Christopher Reeve just in an alleyway, right? The iconic, like, ripping the shirt.
Very cool, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
You know what I like about this movie? Like, it doesn't have the pomp of the first one. It was like we dealt with all that pomp in the first 50 minutes, which we liked.
Right.
But then we didn't really have time for a Superman movie after that. It was kind of weird and badly paced. I like that this movie is just like a straight-ahead Superman action story.
True. Yeah.
And we do a little of that Superman No More thing, which we later do in, like, Spider-Man 3.
I love that. That was...
He loses powers. There's that good bully sequence, which Donner supposedly directed.
I'm sure he did, because, that sequence is what... let me see. Yeah, that's my... I had to check my notes. Is that my favorite sequence? I actually didn't write it down. That's my favorite sequence. Yeah.
Mine's probably them in the honeymoon suite yapping.
Really?
Yeah, they've got a good rapport. I
think it goes on too long.
Nah, I enjoyed it. I really like, I think Reeve and Kidder's chemistry in this movie is a big improvement on the first one. Maybe it's just by virtue of the fact that the actors are familiar with each other now. And there's a lot of good beats in this movie. I think the romantic beats almost all work, except possibly for the super kiss at the end of the movie.
I knew you would hate that.
That's stupid.
I knew you were going to hate that.
The two dumbest things in this movie, let's get them both right out of the way,
all right,
are Superman having a super kiss, which I can't fault the movie for that much because that was one of those like old school comic book things that probably they should have gotten rid of years ago, and eventually they did. Post Crisis on Infinite Earths for my fucking comic nerds out there.
Okay.
But the other thing, how about Superman grabbing the S logo and manifesting it into like a boomerang?
Who cares? That didn't bother me.
Come on, that's terrible.
Who cares? Yeah, but it like he's in the Fortress of Solitude. He does a lot of weird shit. What about him disappearing and all of them disappearing and reappearing?
But to me,
what was that?
No, because of all the crystals, I buy that. I think that
you buy that, but you don't buy him throwing a giant S.
Because what the fuck is he doing? Where is he grabbing that from? What is he putting his hand into the Phantom Zone?
I don't know. Where do his clothes go when he sheds them as Clark Kent? They just fall on the ground.
That's stupid too, by the way. But look, to me,
I didn't care about that. The British kid in Houston bothered me more.
Okay,
remember that?
Yeah, I do. That was stupid.
Oliver Twist in Houston.
Yeah, please, sir. The Superman disappearing thing, I was okay with because to me, that's Clark showing smarts and ingenuity, whereas the other thing is just like, hey, check out this heretofore unseen power I have.
Well, yeah, he also has that weird power that I didn't know, I forgot about. Also, all three of the villains, they show it first when they point their finger and lift people out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, they have telekinesis.
And then Oliver Twist wants his dad to be put down, and he says, "Please, sir, let my daddy down." And we're in Houston, Texas, and I was wondering, I guess they shot a good deal of this in Pinewood, right? Is that all that can explain that?
Yeah. They shot on location in that first one in New York. Most of the shit in this movie is studio lots.
Yeah.
And that's why the fight at the end kind of doesn't look great.
It sure doesn't.
Yeah.
But I still liked it because it was a very localized fight.
Yeah, it's just in Times Square or whatever. I thought it dragged, and there were a couple of beats in there that I thought were just not interesting. Like, I think I got a little bored during that sequence.
I agree. I didn't actually just mean localized, meaning Times Square. I meant, and we'll actually come to it when we get to Man of Steel, but I meant like it's not destroying the entire city. It was, there was enough destruction. It was like believable destruction.
No,
you know
I know.
What I mean?
It's like Zack Snyder watched Superman 2, and he was like, "Listen, man, I'm going to show you what it's really like when Kryptonians fight in a city." Like, that's a thing that really happens. You fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Spoilers, I hate Man of Steel.
Yeah, well, that's an opinion of yours that evolved over time.
Well, so hey, I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to watch it again, so maybe I'll enjoy parts of it. Kevin Costner's in it, not promising. He's my least favorite actor. Okay. Yeah. What else you got on Superman 2?
Oh, well, geez, we should probably have a good deal.
You want some of my stray obs?
Yeah, well, here, wait, I got one.
Okay.
Here's the stray obs. Remember all that, it fits in. Speaking of Man of Steel, remember all that furor? And I think you were a little bit part of this and initially. Now you probably don't care because you hate the whole movie so much. But remember all the killing Zod? That was it was a big deal. Like, a lot of critics pointed it out. Superman would never kill anyone. And I remember, spoiler alert for you who haven't seen Man of Steel, he kills Zod.
Great, he just saved you 2.5 hours of your fucking life.
Right. I never understood it because I initially was like, wait a minute, he kills Zod in Superman 2. And so when the scene came up again, it's really funny because it's even, and when I say it's worse, I don't mean I think it's great. I love the ending of Superman 2 and how it works. But how he kills Zod in Superman 2 is even worse in terms of like the inhumanity of it. Because he's turned Zod into a mortal. So he just crushes his hand in that great scene with that great music cue, as you recall, right? I love that.
Yeah, great. John Williams again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he tosses him and just kills him. And it's funny because in Man of Steel, there's at least there are people in peril, and Zod is full of his own power physically and is going to kill a lot more people and is possibly going to kill Superman. But in this one, Superman's like, yep, turn him into a mortal, you're dead. Instead of doing the Superman-y thing, which would be
just let him live as a mortal. That's punishment enough.
Exactly. Cuff him, throw him to Rikers. But no, kills him. And then I love that Lois kills the girl, and then Non is an idiot, so just falls to his own death. But didn't you think that was interesting that he was that? Forget Man of Steel, just this movie. Isn't that interesting that Superman turns him into a
tidy an ending for me. Yeah. And I think Terrence Stamp was such a good villain that I do. One of the things I think Superman the movie did right was just let Lex be a workable character in future movies.
Absolutely.
And so killing Terrence Stamp I think is a mistake, but I will say the difference between Superman 2 and Man of Steel is Superman 2 manages to sell the humanity of that moment, where Clark, or Superman, whatever, he's reached a point where there's nothing else he can do, and he seems sad by it. The Christopher Reeve performance really sells that, I think. In Man of Steel, they cast a mannequin as Superman. He's very pretty. But to me, that sequence was it'll be fucking baller, bro. Let's have him fucking snap his neck. It'll be cool.
Was that your Richard Donner impression?
That's my Snyder.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. And let's talk real quick too about the. I know you want to get to Superman 3, right? Because you've got to have.
I'm dying. I'm dying.
No, well, but you got to die a little slower.
Okay.
Because
like Zod in Man of Steel.
Exactly. Because I wanted to talk about taking away Superman's powers in this movie and what a brilliant decision that was. Because I just thought it was just a great. It's like the perfect amount of time It's kind of unclear how long he is without his powers. Like, they make that kind of ambiguous, because you could view it as, like, well, he takes a car ride with Lois to a diner.
Yeah. That bothers me a little bit, because I don't like parts of that section of the movie structurally, just because the Zod stuff is happening totally separately from Clark and Lois, and it's a huge thing. Like, they take over the Oval Office, and Clark and Lois are just in a diner, and like it's like, yo, guys, do you ever watch the news? Maybe.
Well, they've been in the Fortress of Solitude too, though. Remember, they intercutting a lot of that Zod stuff with Superman, like giving her dinner and giving her something else.
But the Zod stuff didn't seem to happen over the course of one day.
No, it didn't. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Other stray op, Ursa, when she first lands on Earth, gets bitten by a snake and says, "Ouch!" But she withstands an entire array of army fire.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, but that's funny.
I'm not trying to pick on the movie. I love it. I just thought those funny things. I
gotta give a shout out to Ursa. Terrence Stamp is my MVP, but
me too.
I always thought it was like just like I remembered it just being like Terrence Stamp and the two people who stand behind him. But who plays Ursa?
Sarah Douglas, who did almost nothing else. She did let me rephrase. She did a lot of stuff, absolutely nothing of note, not one movie.
That's crazy. It's a pretty good performance.
It's great.
Yeah,
she's
I really like her.
Good.
She was like, she'd be my second choice for MVP, I think, if like Reeve isn't in the runnings, like I've been doing.
Also, we're going to get in, before we get into Superman 3, I want to point out a really interesting thing that is going to tie in for every superhero movie we ever cover for me, okay? It's going to be one of my things. What I love about the carryover of Lex Luthor is that ever since, I'd say, the first Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman, and then the first Spider-Man, I never like when comic book heroes either kill their enemy or let their enemy die. It never sat well with me, because I guess I was always...
Depends on the hero.
It depends on the hero and it depends on the villain, and I always that's the old comic booky guy in me, always liking seeing them kind of cuffed up and sent back to Arkham.
I liked Lex in jail at the beginning of this movie.
One of my favorite lines in the movie is a total throwaway line when he turns to a prisoner he's walking by and he goes, "I want my Liberace record back tonight." And the guy goes, "There's a scratch on it." There's no reason. It's just such a great little touch. Like, of course, Lex Luthor listens to Liberace. It's like, what is it? But, like, that's one of my things, and I don't like it. I didn't like it in Spider-Man when the Green Goblin died. I didn't like, it annoyed me when the Joker...
To be fair, that's from the comic.
I know, but I'm saying it, like, as a general point. I am someone who prefers the Dark Knight type thing, where the Joker is just reprihended. Apprehended.
Jesus Christ.
You know, that's funny, because the other day I was using that word at work, and the other person I was talking to couldn't think of the word either, and it's apprehended. Yeah. What a genius I am.
Yeah, I will say that the Lex in prison, I like Gene Hackman way more in this movie, by the way. I know I talked shit last week, but I love Gene Hackman as an actor, and I think he serves a better role in this movie. Sadly, that prison sequence almost entirely ruined by the presence of Otis.
I was waiting for it.
We had to see Otis again in this movie. Lex steps on his hand, and Otis goes, "Oh, boss!"
Yeah. You're right, your fullness. One of the many monikers that Gene Hackman gives Terrence Stamp, which I love.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Oh, your fullness.
Yeah.
Did I kind of redeem myself for saying moniker when I couldn't think of apprehended? Or not really? Not yet.
Not yet, buddy.
All right,
I don't even remember what you're talking about. Did you get moniker wrong?
No, I got moniker right. It was a good word choice.
Oh, a good pull. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else on Superman 2?
Oh, I have just two more. Well, I have a couple more quick things. Just the two things that hold up the worst about Superman 2. Okay. Did you happen to notice that in Perry White's office at the Daily Planet, he had a framed photo of Bill Cosby on the wall?
I absolutely noticed it. It was so noticeable, I didn't even need to take a note because I knew you would or one of us would. But I did forget it, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Whoa.
What a weird thing.
Odd choice.
Very timely and bizarre. Why would the chief editor of the Daily Planet have what's that about?
It's almost like when you're watching like a political movie and like all like the offices, you know, like they'll have a picture of the current president in the background.
Right.
Or in real life, that's a real life thing too.
But Bill Cosby didn't even have the Cosby Show. He was still just like a very famous like stand-up comedian. I mean, why him?
He was like, what? Fucking Perry White was just like a huge I Spy fan?
Yeah, he was a Leonard Part 6 fan. I don't know.
That hadn't happened yet.
No, it hadn't. We'll be covering that in the French.
Oh yeah, we'll be sure to cover all 6 parts of Leonard. Did Bill Cosby show up in a franchise?
Besides Leonard Part 6, I don't know. I doubt it.
Was there a Ghost Dad too?
There might have been.
I don't
with
think so.
Mike Epps. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Man, good ref.
Yeah.
Uncle Buck.
I have no idea.
All right. Already canceled. But oh, and the other thing is Marlboro was a sponsor of this film.
Loved it.
And there are Marlboro trucks and ads everywhere, and Lois Lane is just smoking cigarettes in every other scene. It is not good.
Oh, I wanted to say too, I did think that and I actually put this in parentheses because it has to be emphasized, in the long distance shots, not in the closer shots, and I don't mean close up, closer. In the long distance shots, I thought the special effects were better. Like, just in general of people flying around, and like when Superman's like there's a particular shot when he's flying towards a building that's extremely good, and like when he lands outside of the Daily Planet, it says, you know, General, care to step outside. Like, that all works. Like, the special effects are a marked improvement.
They're a little better.
A little better.
I also think it helps the Kryptonians' uniforms look less silly when they're flying.
That's true. They are pretty silly. They're dressed like T-Rex for most of it.
Hey, I wanted to play this game. Superman 2 was the 3rd highest grossing movie of 1981. What were the top 2?
Chariots of Fire.
No.
1981. Again, we'll make it. Give me some hints, and we'll go through it.
Number 2 is Insane.
Okay, give me a hint.
All right, well, I'll give you number 1 first. Is the first part of a long-running franchise.
Oh, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's right.
Okay.
Number 2 stars a lot of old people.
Okay.
I believe it was nominated for some Oscars.
Can I get a little more than that?
No, it's one of the prime old people movies of all time.
Old Stars.
Old people.
On Golden Pond.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was totally you know what helped me? You said it got Oscars, and I remember, didn't Henry Fonda win for that?
I believe so.
That was the number 2 box office?
What were we doing in America where everyone was super like, I gotta fucking get out to that theater, see On Golden Pond?
Wow, talk about a Jimmy Carter malaise speech. Wow, let's go see On Golden Pond.
That is mind-blowing.
That is mind-blowing.
Number 1, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Number 3, Superman 2. Number 2, On Golden Pond.
I think of all of the, and I don't think I'm being hyperbolic here, of all of the rundowns that you've done of, like, we haven't done them every week, but of the ones you've told me of what was number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of that year, that is the most mind-blowing.
That's insane.
Because that was, I did not, I mean, obviously I don't remember it, I was an infant, but I can't even imagine that. Maybe, who was, Jane Fonda, I guess, was still, that was no excuse. I don't get that at all. I can't come up with any rationale for that.
So weird.
Very weird.
Yeah.
Wow. That must have pissed off the Salkinds.
Yeah, I bet. They got beat by On Golden Pond. That's such a bad title for a movie, too.
And not a great movie either.
I think movies should never start with on or about.
You're right, On the Waterfront. That's not a good one.
No, it's a good movie. I don't like that title.
I think it's a great title. I'm just kidding, though. You're right. So they shouldn't start with like on or what else did you say?
About a boy.
About Schmidt.
Yeah, I don't like that. About Schmidt's a great movie, but
I
it's
love
not
it.
a good title.
About Batman.
You know what? On Golden Pond, I've never seen that movie,
I saw it once.
and all I know about it is there's a lot of old people in it, and I think it's especially a bad title because the first thing I think of is like old people swimming in a pond and they like lose control of their bladders and pee.
It's like the worst sequence in Twilight Zone, the movie, the Spielberg sequence where they all regain their youth. It's the cocoon of old.
Yeah,
people.
that to me, like when you tell me, oh, it's an old people movie, I think, oh, well, it's either On Golden Pond or Cocoon.
Right. Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah, I guess that counts.
Who's your LVP and then star rating?
LVP's Otis.
Okay.
And I'll go 4 on this one.
You're going 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going 4 as well.
Okay.
I wanted to go 5, but I'm going to go 4 because my whole life I always liked Superman 2 more than Superman, but upon the rewatch, I think I still like the original just a little bit more. The hokiness in Superman 2, there's a little too much Richard Lester in Superman 2 for me. I think there's a little too much. It's about 75% too much Richard Lester.
Well, the amount of Richard Lester in Superman 3 makes you long for the days of Superman 2.
Sure does, and I'll quickly say my LVP is Clifton James. Do you know who that is?
Nope.
He is reprising his dumb sheriff role from 2 of the dumbest Roger Moore James Bond movies, where he played a recurring character. I'm a James Bond fanatic, for those of you who obviously wouldn't know.
We'll cover it one year.
I figured I had a good idea for that. I figure what we do is we would do it by actor. We'll do
that's not bad.
Right, you do the Sean Connerys, then we take a break for a while, then we come back and we do Roger Moore. How about that?
That's not bad. Yeah,
that's the only way I could think to do it. I think it works. Anyway,
how many are there now? 24?
Something like that.
Yeah.
So that's how we should do it.
Are we going to cover Casino Royale, the Woody Allen film?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Clifton James, LVP, awful, takes me out of the movie. I kept thinking, where is Roger Moore and the Man with the Golden Gun? So.
Oh, that's a good Bond movie.
It's an okay Bond movie, yeah.
That's more accurate.
All right, so Superman, 4 stars each. We're in agreement. But okay, good. All right.
So a couple years later, so the Superman 2 does end with the title card coming soon to Superman 3.
Yeah, that's true.
And it did. It came pretty soon.
2 years. Yeah.
Released June 17th, 1983. Big summer release. Budget of $39 million. Those Salkins running out of money.
Penny pinchers, aren't they?
They really are.
Oh, by the way, one of my favorite quotes, I got to say, and we'll come back to it, of course, because it's a franchise of Superman, was I don't know if you read this, the guy who played Non, Jack O'Halloran, said that, and a bunch of actors said that, I don't know if you read this, but a bunch of actors were just really unhappy with Richard Lester and just apparently thought he was a big asshole. And Jack O'Halloran had like a great quote where he said, "I'd work with Richard Donner again any day of the week. Richard Lester was a total asshole."
Ooh, man, harsh.
Very harsh.
I know Hackman didn't come back. Like every Lex scene in this movie, in Superman 2, was directed by Richard Donner.
And Margot Kidder didn't like him. The only person who I found that didn't seem to say anything bad about him, Ursa.
I noticed that.
And Christopher Reeve didn't really have anything much bad.
Christopher Reeve's a sweet guy. I think he knows how to be diplomatic.
Exactly. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Like Superman.
Oh. All right, so Superman 3 comes out with a budget of $39 million, box office of 80.2. Ooh, not good.
Hey, they doubled the budget.
That's just making your money back when you account for marketing and shit. It was. I mean, this was only the 12th highest grossing movie of 1983.
Yeah.
I didn't write all of them down, but I will say 3 movies that beat it.
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, but I wrote down the ones that are like
not obvious.
That should not have beaten it.
Educating Rita.
No, Sudden Impact.
Ooh, oh well, Dirty Harry movie.
Okay, fine. But how about these two?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mom.
Nice. That was a hit.
Yeah,
But I see your
it's
logic.
Superman 3.
Right. Okay, Mr. Mom.
And Staying Alive.
Ooh.
Yeah, the Saturday Night Fever sequel, directed
Frank.
by Frank Stallone.
Frank Stallone. Wait a minute. No.
Didn't he direct that?
Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, right. Frank did the music. Frank did the music. You're right.
Frank Stallone.
He did the music.
He couldn't direct a cup of coffee. He's the bartender in Barfly. Come on.
Ooh.
Did he really do? Yeah.
Yeah, all that. Remember that play? Like the last fucking 40 minutes of that movie is just John Travolta in a play, and Frank Stallone wrote all the music.
Jackie Stallone directed the infomercial based.
I love that. I love that. We'll have to cover that franchise actually, but Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first movie they got the Bee Gees, and the second movie they got Frank Stallone.
Yeah. I'm not a Bee Gees fan, but a little bit of a step down.
Hey, I'm not a big Bee Gees fan, but for all you music lovers out there that write off the Bee Gees, one of the most underrated albums of all time is the first Bee Gees album. You can stop after that one, but that album's great.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Plug for the
little
Gibbs.
plug for Bee Gees first.
For the Gibbs.
Yeah. So the original script to Superman 3 was set to feature Dudley Moore as Mr. Maxi Plaque. Weird that they'd go with Mr. Maxi Plaque again after Gene Hackman played him in Superman 1.
They should have gone with Dudley Moore as Mr. Maxi Plaque.
Probably.
Why not?
Brainiac was supposed to be in it as well.
Yeah, he kind of is.
Robert Vaughn?
Yeah.
And Supergirl was supposed to be in it, but then they decided they were going to spin her off. And I will say right now, we will be covering Supergirl, but we're doing it on like a bonus episode.
It's going to be a bonus episode, a special shorter episode, just covering Supergirl.
Right. You'll get like a midweek episode of the franchise.
Which I will say right off the bat, I saw in theaters. I was 6 years old and never saw it again, so that'll be a fun rewatch, or maybe not so fun.
I'll probably at least enjoy Faye Dunaway. I like Faye
Have you ever
Dunaway.
seen it?
No, never.
That's great. All right, good. Yeah, I've basically never seen it either.
By the way, I'd never seen Superman 3.
I had
thought
not
I
seen
had.
it in about 30 years, so I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
by the way, who else is... Well, you know what? We'll get to it when we do Supergirl. Forget it. Yeah.
Okay, so the Salkins...
Oh.
Then saw Richard Pryor on Johnny Carson.
Yep.
And he was talking about how he'd love to be in a Superman movie. Yeah. And who knows? He was probably just high on heroin at the time. But they offered him a role. Not to denigrate Richard Pryor. He's one of the best stand-up comics of all time.
No. I didn't think you were.
I love Richard Pryor as a stand-up comic.
He's one of my favorite people and favorite stand-up comedians of all time.
Yes.
And he was actually off of the drugs by that point.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't...
And not the worst part of this movie. I'm sorry. Not the worst part or aspect of this movie.
Disagree.
He's close. But there's a lot of discussion to get to. So why don't we start with the opening?
Wait! I'm not done. I'm not done with Pryor.
Sorry.
I just want to give another quick shout out. I more often than not don't think Richard Pryor works in a movie context.
Sure.
But I have liked him way more in other things. I like Silver Streak. That's a good movie.
I don't think I ever saw Silver Streak.
It's good. It used to be on Comedy Central a lot, so I ended up watching it.
Yeah. He's good in Harlem Nights, which is not a good movie, but he's good in it.
Yeah, that's one of those on the verge of death performances. You know, he's like Harlem Nights is his Jason Robards in Magnolia.
No, actually, that would be Lost Highway. Remember that?
No.
Richard Pryor is in Lost Highway.
That's insane.
And he is not doing well. That's when he's really not doing well. By the time Harlem Nights, he was actually still okay. He hadn't come down with, what was it, Parkinson's, I think?
Maybe.
Yeah. Anyway. No, multiple sclerosis.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay. Anyway.
Okay, so what were you going to say? The Superman 3 opens...
Well, I was going to just start. Okay. I was going to say this movie starts... right away awful. Possibly in the top 5 worst opening credits. No, not possibly. in the top 5 for the worst opening credits
That's
of all
right.
time.
Yeah, so the first two movies, the opening credits are just these very majestic,
Yeah.
Titles. It's just
As
a
they
title
should be.
sequence with the John Williams score over it.
Right, key there. Yeah.
And in this one, we went with sort of a slapstick comedy. It really is like the opening credits of Superman 3 are like watching a live-action adaptation of a Mr. Magoo short.
Right. It made Batman the TV series introduction opening look like the Dark Knight opening.
Yeah, there's a blind guy running around. People are slipping on gumballs at one point.
A guy almost drowns in his own car.
There's a pie to the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, a guy drowns in his car. That was weird.
That's when Soups shows up.
Yeah, he like opens the sunroof or whatever.
There is really not a lot going on in that universe, if that's what he's having to do at that point. Yeah.
Who drowns in their car? That'd be the worst death ever.
In public, nonetheless.
I know.
It's not like he fell into the river, Bourne style.
No, he's
it's like
legit just parked on the side of the road.
and a fire hydrant, because of the chain of events that led to the fire hydrant being knocked in. A dog runs loose. Don't forget the dog.
No, it's very Rube Goldbergian or whatever.
And underneath of it, they slip in Superman 3. It's like on the pavement, Superman 3.
Oh yeah.
Type. Wow. It's stupefying. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was unbelievable.
Margot Kidder got the "and" credit. That made me happy. Although
Yeah,
she
but
is barely in this movie.
That's because they didn't like her, despite their later denials that was the reason. I read that they said on the commentary, I could not bear to watch the commentary on this, but I read that on the commentary to the movie, they said, hey, we never had a problem with Margot Kidder. It had nothing to do with that. It was a story choice.
No, that's bullshit. Can I say one positive thing about this movie before I rip on it? I didn't mind Margot Kidder not being around as much as I thought I would.
Yeah.
Because I thought Annette O'Toole was a very charming Lana Lang.
I agree.
And she is my MVP in this movie.
Yeah.
I actually liked a fair amount of the stuff with Clark returning to Smallville.
Did you like how we have a little Back to the Future musical tie-in?
No. Oh, fuck yes, of course. I already talked about this being one of my top 20 favorite songs of all time.
That's what I'm here for, buddy.
The Penguins are back with their hit Earth Angel.
And so is Chuck Berry.
And not only are they dancing to Earth Angel, Clark gets over to a piano and starts playing it. Superman knows how to play Earth Angel on piano?
He does. He's Superman. He studied everything in life for 12 years.
That's some super key tickling.
And then they got a little the Beatles version of Roll Over Beethoven. So that's a double Back to the Future reference. Chuck Berry in there too.
Good point. Yeah, and I like that. I like the prom scene. I mean, it doesn't belong in a Superman movie. It reminded me of the episode of 30 Rock where Liz takes Alec Baldwin's character Jack Donaghy back to her prom. I mean, it's silly, but it was charming. It was nice to see Christopher Reeve get to act. Annette O'Toole glowed. She's so charming, so just sweet and lovely, and I really liked the Smallville stuff. But everything else is dog shit.
Here's how cheap the Salkins are. Okay? I bet you didn't notice this. There are two actors from Superman 2 that I can't even say reprise, are in different roles in Superman 3.
I didn't notice that shit at all. What happened?
The NASA air controller,
Cliff Clavin?
No, his buddy.
Okay.
Is the cop that comes up to the bus that stops the school trip from going to that plant before it explodes. Okay.
Oh, right. Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
Okay, so we needed to get that actor back into a different role. And the guy at the ATM, when all the money starts shooting out at him.
Oh, God. Oh, it's so stupid.
Yeah. Is the skinny cop in Superman 2 to Clifton James's fat cop.
Yeah.
So we got... What is going on?
I don't know. So the money coming out of the ATM is a result of this scam, okay?
From the Office Space.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Office Space for sure. Okay, so the movie starts with Richard Pryor. He's at the unemployment office, and he fails to get unemployment, and he sees a flyer that says you could take computer classes, and he turns out to be like an idiot savant at computers. Now, that's racist, right?
There's a few things in here that are a little racist.
But, well, hey, Richard Pryor, he'd been in The Toy the year before. I can't say Superman 3 is more racist than that.
Boy.
But, hey, so why can't Richard Pryor just play a computer genius?
Yeah.
Why does he have to be a guy that turns out to absent-mindedly be a computer genius when he takes a class to get off unemployment? Because the Salkins, in the one feature I watched 10 minutes of and then had to turn it off, said in the interview, by the way, they're a husband and wife. I'm sorry, not the Salkins, the Newmans. Yeah, they're a husband and wife. I knew that. The
Newmans, who may be two of the most illiterate fucking idiots I've ever seen in my life being interviewed, said that they were so happy to have Richard Pryor so they could write comic relief specifically for Richard Pryor and build his character.
There's no comic relief in this movie. There's, like, action relief.
Oh, there's comic relief.
No, I'm saying, but the movie is just a comedy.
Right.
There's superhero relief in this movie.
Right. You got that right. When he saves the plant from exploding into a fireball, I was fucking begging for that to come back. I was like, please something else blow up. You know, it was like, oh, please, everyone stop talking and just let Superman save something. I mean, it was...
The biggest fight scene in this movie is Clark fighting himself.
Now, this is where you and me are going to disagree.
Because you're going to like this sequence?
I was really worried going into it. Well, not worried, I just thought I would hate it. It's the only part of the movie I liked.
I hated it.
And I'll tell you why. Because...
Okay, wait, so at this point in the movie...
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Clark has had what is like it's like a different kind of kryptonite, right?
Right.
Essentially, they're doing what is red kryptonite in the comic, but the Salkins didn't buy paint, so it's green.
Or read a comic.
Sure. So the red kryptonite in the comics makes Superman sort of like a bad boy version of himself. So he becomes an alcoholic and he's a dick. And there's a sequence in this movie where he's in a junkyard and he I guess imagines the good Superman. And it's an inner struggle that plays out as a way over long fist fight.
All right. So can I go?
Yeah, please.
All right. First of all, I actually didn't think the sequence was that long at all. And I liked when he goes bad, Christopher Reeve makes that cool.
The performance is good. And I flagged this up last week when I talked about the best thing about Christopher Reeve's performance in all of these movies. He's great at switching up his body language.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. I mean, he's still great as Clark Kent.
Yeah, so Superman, Clark Kent, and bad Superman move differently.
I mean, he is absolutely, and I didn't think I'd think this. I thought it would just be completely hammy. He is absolutely believable as a grizzled, nasty motherfucker as Superman. His costume is darker inexplicably. He's got some stubble. His snarl is real. I bought it. And so when he fights him,
Johnny Walker Red,
drinking Johnny Walker Red and flipping peanuts at the bottles, I thought it was that worked. And then when he fights himself in the junkyard, I thought that was very cool. I liked it.
I couldn't wait.
It's the only part of the movie where I was not cringing. I liked it.
You know, I will say one thing about Superman 3, and it's bad, but it's so aggressively bad that after about 20 minutes of trying to find good stuff and failing, I gave into it a little bit.
Yeah.
I had fun watching Superman 3. It's awful.
So are you falling into the so bad it's good? Or
I think a little bit. I think it's
so am
kind
I,
of-
and I don't like that a lot.
I think
saying
it's
that,
kind
but-
of a watchable movie.
Yeah, it's almost like you've got to see this movie. You've just got to see it.
It's amazing that it
Yeah.
exists. It's crazy that this is a Superman movie.
Yeah, because it is a cinematic Katrina. I mean, it
Can we
really
get
is.
into Robert Vaughn as the villain?
Right before we get into him, which I want to do, I do want to point out that we do see Superman use a power we have not seen him use, which is the super sneeze. When the kid is bowling and Superman wants him to get a strike, and he sneezes it into the fair lane and gives him a strike.
Yeah, well, all that is there is super breath,
Right.
which is well established, and
Super snot.
I think maybe in the original script it was super breath, and Richard Lester was like, "Let's make it funny. How about he
Right.
sneezes instead?"
Yeah, it's not Three Stoogie enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the one thing too, I bet you didn't catch this. In fact, I rewound it. The only time in the movie I rewound.
I would
Lana-
never have done that in this movie.
Lana Lang. Well, I had to because I wanted to make sure I heard it right.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they had, because the movie's so unabashedly New York City, even though they say it's Metropolis throughout all the movies.
So crazy.
Lana Lang says to Clark something like, "So what's it like in the Big Apricot?"
Ooh, weird. I didn't catch that.
And I said, no, she didn't. She couldn't have said that. She said Big Apple, and I went back. Says Big Apricot.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I was too mesmerized by Annette O'Toole.
Yeah, she's beautiful too. Did you see 48 Hours? She's great. Anyway, another franchise, by the way.
Do you know Annette O'Toole's later role in the Superman franchise?
Ooh, I don't know. Best key grip.
She played Martha Kent on Smallville.
Oh yeah, I read that.
She was a regular. She was on that whole series.
How'd you like the streetlight animation? Before we get to Robert Vaughn.
Streetlight animation?
Yeah, when the city goes crazy and everything's going nuts, and the do not walk sign fights with itself.
Oh my God! I forgot about that. Yeah, that was mind blowing.
That really was mind blowing.
It's a little bit like the stuff in Ghostbusters 2 when like the ooze is taking over, but way dumber.
Oh yeah, and of course it's a Ghostbusters movie, so it's paranormal. So
And
I would,
supposed to be a comedy.
right, and I would believe that a street light might fight itself in a Ghostbusters paranormal movie, but in Superman 3, the computer circuitry makes the walk man.
Fight the don't walk, man.
Oh my God! Woo! All right.
It's great. Okay,
Let's go, Robert Vaughn.
So Richard Pryor in this movie, he's doing a scam at the company he gets a job at, which he seems to get after one computer class.
Right.
And he is doing the Office Space scam, right? Where he's literally taking like fractions of pennies.
He takes a half cent.
Yeah.
Yeah, half a cent.
And you know, we can say Office Space because they reference Superman 3 in that movie.
That's why it's so great.
Yeah.
And did you think about Office Space also in the context of when they make that joke? Did it occur to you? Because I know this happened to me. Well, I mean, I saw Office Space when it came out, but obviously I've seen it 100 times since. And thinking back, like, boy, Superman 3, I don't remember that in that movie. Come to think of it, I don't remember anything about Superman 3.
Yeah, well, I'd never seen Superman 3.
Right. Oh, right.
I really thought I had, but I hadn't. Yeah, but it is like Office Space is right. They're just doing the exact same thing from Superman 3, which makes Office Space even funnier to me now.
Absolutely.
But, okay, but so Robert Vaughn is like the head of this company, and
Big TV actor.
Well,
for those
I have questions for you about Robert Vaughn.
Oh, I might not be able to answer them, but
Okay.
you can go ahead. Because I looked a lot of stuff, but I didn't write stuff down for him. Because I didn't.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So Robert Vaughn catches him and realizes, you know, Richard Pryor's smarts and takes him under his wing in like a world takeover plan or whatever.
Right.
And so my question about Robert Vaughn is I'd only ever seen him in one thing before this.
Yeah, probably me too.
And he's delivering the exact same performance because he
Right.
was the villain in that too. But it's kind of weird because he's the villain here in Superman 3, and that other movie I saw him as the villain in was Basketball.
That is great. Okay, yeah, no. I mean, I recognize he's like one of those Hollywood actors that you like. Who's the number 2 in the Austin Powers movies?
Oh yeah, Robert Wagner.
Robert Wagner.
Yeah, or
He's
like George Hamilton or something.
Yeah, and Robert Vaughn. I remembered him like being in a Columbo episode where he's like the villain. I think he did a lot of stuff like that, like a lot of 70s television shows.
Yeah, I feel like
he's probably like in the $6 Million Man or something.
Yeah, or like Knots Landing.
Exactly. Yeah. But in terms of big movies, I don't know that he ever really became huge. But he was big. I mean, I think that's the reason they got him.
Hey, he was in Basketball.
Yeah, right.
He made out with Jenny McCarthy.
What was he, 100 years old? Because he's already
no.
like...
By the way, in Basketball, he looks and sounds identical to how he looks in Superman 3. He
That's
aged
hilarious.
like a motherfucker.
Like Dick Clark aged.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, he's just not good in this. I mean, most of that is the writing, and you know what? It's half and half. He's just bad in it, and they're bad to him.
I don't want to give Robert Vaughn too much shit because he
Right.
shows up and he's Robert Vaughn, and for some reason that's what the Salkins wanted in this movie. They hired Robert Vaughn, and they got Robert Vaughn.
Oh yeah, they sure did. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
Robert Vaughn. I read a few analyses of this movie, but the two that were Roger Ebert and Pauline Kael.
Oh, Pauline Kael! I'd love to read her review of this.
Well,
movie.
it's funny. Yeah, Roger Ebert gave it 1.5 stars, so that was refreshing.
That's about right.
But Pauline Kael was surprisingly kind. It's a first of all, I have it in front of me. It's in one of my Pauline Kael books. It's a 5.5-page review.
Wow, she had a lot to say.
So put that in perspective, I also read her review of Superman 2. Superman 2 got a paragraph, not even a page.
Yeah,
and it's positive, but it's a paragraph. So there's a
lot of weird ones like that. You'll look up Pauline Kael reviews. Like, I wonder what she said about like Beetlejuice, and it's like fucking half a page.
Right.
Yeah.
But her review is kind of all over the place, like the movie. But it's like some positive stuff, way more positive stuff than negative stuff.
Weird.
Yeah, you should read it.
I should.
It's very interesting.
Pauline Kael, for our listeners, if you don't know, is one of the harshest film critics of all time.
Yeah, she is.
I mean, she'll watch like Goodfellas and be like, stupid.
But she's very iconoclastic. You know, she has opinions that are like way off the map. Like she never. I mean, there's a couple of. I guess you could say that about any critic if you look up individual examples. But to my reading history of critics, sorry, that came out awkward. She is the most iconoclastic. Where like you never know what she's going to say. Like she doesn't give a shit about what anyone says anywhere else, you know.
She's on the Mount Rushmore of film critics for me. She's the best female film critic of all time and possibly the best film critic of all. I mean, I think she might be the best writer of any film critic.
That's fair. I mean, I don't know who the best film critic of all time is. I couldn't say that, but she really writes
probably Ebbs.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, you got Andrew Sarris. You got I don't know. I wouldn't include.
Sure, I love
David Denby or anybody. Like
no,
that.
Me neither. I love A.O. Scott and Manolo Dargis, but there's a lot of good ones. Nathan Rabin is currently one of my favorites, but Pauline Kael's in a class by herself, I think.
But for our listeners, read her review of Superman 3. I'm sure it's online. It's absolutely fascinating. It's a very just to give this movie so much, so much wordage, so much time is just unimaginable. Actually, she has something to say about Robert Vaughn's polished smarminess is scaled to television. His villainy doesn't fill the big screen.
I think that's right.
And when he tries to ruin the Colombian coffee crop or succeeds in stopping the world's flow of oil, Richard Lester treats what happens so flippantly that nothing appears to be at stake.
It's a slapstick movie.
His sister's terrible, too, by the way. Terrible character.
Oh yeah, well yeah, well she's as bad as Gene Hackman's female assistant in that first one.
And what's with the blonde in this movie?
What do you mean?
Well, she's dumb, okay, and then she'll say like these 2 or 3 lines that are supposed to like intimate that she's some kind of actual genius.
Oh right, yeah, she's like a secret genius.
But then they never follow up on it.
No, it's just jokes. It's just jokes. This whole movie is just jokes.
God.
You mentioned the fucking Three Stooges earlier, and I think that nails it.
Yeah.
That's what
right.
he's doing. To me, this is the Richard Lester of the guy who made A Hard Day's Night, where he saw the cultural icons, the Beatles, and they were like, let's put them in this zany silliness. And it kind of worked for the Beatles because at the time they were in their, it probably wouldn't have worked later on in like the Sgt. Pepper White Album period, but they were still kind of silly back then.
Yeah.
Whereas like she's taking, Richard Lester's taking Superman, who only 2 movies ago was treated basically as Jesus Christ. And you're doing the same thing with him. It doesn't work.
Now he's like the Life of Brian version of Jesus Christ. Yeah.
It's fine to do a Superman movie with plenty of comic relief. It's not okay to do a Superman movie that's a comedy.
Right.
And
I agree.
And the comedy's not funny.
It's not funny, and that's probably the key to the whole thing. If it was funny, I still don't think I would have liked it. I still don't think it would have worked. But if it was funny, it would be a whole different thing. I mean, the skiing. Go tell me about your skiing.
I wish.
I want to hear about it.
So there's a sequence in this movie where they're on top of Robert Vaughn's building, and he has like a slope up there, like a ski slope.
Yeah.
And so Richard Pryor slaps on these pink skis. They got to be pink just because, like, part of it can't just be a slapstick joke. It's also got to be, it's gay.
Right.
And
a pink shawl.
Yeah, and a pink shawl, of course. So he falls off the building, and, he, like, it's like a Rube Goldberg kind of thing where he lands on his feet and just starts walking away with the skis. Like, he, like, dusts himself off. And, yeah, I honestly wish someone took like a candid photograph of me while I was watching that. I wish I knew what my face was doing during that sequence.
You were probably making a kind of a Three Stooges face.
Yeah, for sure.
Like somebody popped you in the eyes. Zoinks!
Sure.
Yeah. Ooh, baby. Yeah.
KFC is the Marlboro of this film, by the way.
Oh, you got that right.
KFC's all over this movie.
How about Lana's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend? What is that all about?
Oh, that I was okay with that because that's a comic book thing. I mean, and it's not good. It doesn't work in the context of the movie. But in the comic, that's based on a character, Brad, who actually works at the Daily Planet. He's like the Daily Planet sports reporter in the comic.
Oh.
And he's just always like calling Clark a wimp and stuff, and like his whole thing is like he's chauvinistic. But one of the fun things the comics did, especially in the Jeff Johns run, which we talked about last week, everybody knows he's a joke.
Okay.
So like everyone's in on the joke. Like he's a totally impotent bully because everybody gets the joke.
Oh, all right, that's cool.
And so I like that character in the comics. He doesn't really work in the context of this movie, but it was just sort of fun to see like, oh, Brad shows up in a Superman movie? Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. I had no idea or context of that.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was overdone. He's just like, once is enough. Like, you get it. She's in the small town, and they got the harassing boyfriend, but then he keeps popping up.
No, you're right. I was okay with it at the reunion, but then he like keeps popping up after that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
Hey,
Superman
it's a bad
3.
movie.
It's a bad movie.
You got anything else
not
to
the
say?
worst movie in the Superman franchise, but it's a bad movie.
What is Man of Steel?
No, that would be Superman Returns, which we'll get to next week.
Oh my God, Henry.
Yeah. Because this movie is, like you said yourself, in your own words, it's recorded. It's so bad, it's watchable. Which is not what I can say. Now, I will be rewatching, of course. So we'll see what I think on a rewatch.
Me too. Listen. Okay.
Yeah, you too. You too.
We can
to
flag up right here. Next week we're talking about Superman Returns.
And Superman 4.
And Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
Which will be a very interesting dichotomy.
I don't think I've seen that either. Or no,
Oh, I've definitely seen
I might
that
have
a
seen
bunch
bits of
times.
it because I know I've seen like sequences of the Nuclear Man.
Right.
But Superman Returns, I liked a lot when I saw it in theaters, and Henry did not like at all.
I saw it in theaters with huge anticipation and almost walked out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and you went
yeah.
in with an open mind. You're a fan of
No,
Bryan
more
Singer.
than an open mind.
This
I went
was-
in very
This was
excited.
Sure, this is before we had to think of Bryan Singer in the context of touching little boys' penises.
Oh, God.
What a
It's true.
gross
It's
weirdo.
true. Yeah,
But,
I know it's gross weirdo. But before that, yeah, no, I was very
No,
excited.
I know. So this will be fun because I don't think either one of us have seen it since. So
No, I think. Well, I don't think so.
no, so we'll have a
No,
sweet,
not in its
sweet-
entirety. No. Yeah.
We'll have a nice rewatch of that, and that'll be next week. But first, Superman 3. I'm gonna give it 2.
So am I.
All right.
I'm
Yeah.
giving it 2. I'm giving it 2 stars. For basically the Christopher Reeves performance and the fight scene. That's it.
Yeah,
He's my MVP.
and
He's my
some of the
MVP again.
Smallville stuff.
Yeah.
To me, this was at least entertaining. Like, I was so bored watching Basic Instinct 2, which I gave a 1 to.
Right. So did I.
So, like, this one at least had something. Like, this was... I gotta say, Superman 3 is terrible and ridiculous. It's a better movie than Basic Instinct 2 and A Good Day to Die Hard.
That's so funny that you brought that up. They're all 3 garbage in different ways, in 3 distinct different ways.
Yeah,
like,
but this is garbage in a fun way, at least.
right, that's true. Yeah. Like they're all train wrecks. Probably the most competent movie being Good Day to Die Hard.
Maybe.
Yeah, and then going down the scale. But yeah, I'm giving it 2 stars. My MVP's Reeve. My LVP, I'm breaking precedent. I can still do an actor, but I'm going to. Me and Daniel are going to. Sometime I've decided that sometimes we need to include other facets of the production because movies are not a sui generis.
Can I guess?
exploration.
Can I guess?
What do you want to do? Guess my actor or my main LVP?
Your LVP.
Sure.
Is it going to be the new composer?
No.
Okay.
It could be.
Yeah.
No, it's Richard Lester.
Oh, just going straight up with the director.
Fucking
All
A.
right.
I'm not even getting creative. It's just he's awful. It's awful, and I can blame the producers all I want, and I do, and the writers all I want, and I do. But Richard Lester, you got my LVP.
And his
buddy.
career kind of died after this movie, right? I think he
Thankfully.
made like one more Three Musketeers movie, and then that was it.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not even going to say my actor because it's not fair.
Oh,
All right, I'll say it.
say it.
It's not his fault. We discussed it in depth. So
Robert
it was,
Vaughn?
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
it was
fine.
Robert Vaughn. But my real MVP is Lester. So who's your LVP in this?
I don't have Otis to choose.
Nope. And I hope you don't pick Richard Pryor
No.
because he's not.
Part of me wants to just pick the character Richard Pryor is playing, but because it's
Well,
not
that's-
Richard Pryor's fault.
Right. Well, that's the problem with just picking actors. I don't know. That's what I've run into. That's why I'm changing my rule. But you can pick the character.
I'll do that. And
Gus Gorman.
Yeah. The
Gus-
Salkins really are the LVP of this movie.
Yeah.
But MVP for me is Annette O'Toole.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, I loved her in this.
Yeah.
Very, very charming.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and Reeve, you got to give him a shout out. We talked about how good he was in the Red Kryptonite sequence. Speaking of Annette O'Toole, they totally did Red Kryptonite a few times on Smallville. Tom Welling not pulling it off.
He played now. Who's he?
He's Superman. He's
Okay.
Clark, and he's like a model. He's generally pretty bad. He's kind of okay when Clark's just has to be like innocent and wide-eyed.
Mhm.
But we'll talk more about Smallville next week because it falls between Superman 4 and Superman Returns. But yeah, they did the Red Kryptonite a couple times, and it's just like he like wears a leather jacket and rides a motorcycle and shit. It's a bummer.
Yeah, see, I like what they did here. They didn't do any of that. He's just still in the costume. He's just, straightening the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
That was horrible.
Yeah, that was bad.
And
That was bad.
yeah,
I liked him punching an oil tanker. I like that.
that was fine. But Superman fixing and refixing the Leaning Tower of Pisa would be the craziest thing in this movie if not for Richard Pryor on skis.
If not for the animation and the street light.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. good
If
point.
not for the super sneeze.
Fucking Superman 3.
Firing on all cylinders. This one.
It's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, one more question about Superman 3. God damn,
Sure.
we got to wrap this up. Does
Sure.
Superman fuck Robert Vaughn's henchman on the Statue of Liberty?
I believe so. That was the impression I got.
Yeah.
Or somewhere.
'cause we
Somewhere.
just cut away.
Yeah, he shows up and
Yeah.
and isn't there a line where late in the movie where she says something like, I don't remember, she says like, we've met or something, and he says something like, I'm sorry ma'am, I don't know, something like that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, they did it.
Which just makes Superman look kind of bad. Like Clark should have done. I don't know. It's a terrible movie. All right. Hey, next week we'll be back. I think our guest is finally coming.